Welcome to the Brain Picker Pro Show, live from Lake Wiley, South Carolina, and all the way down in Miami, Florida. My good friend Alex Pardo is our guest today. What's going on, buddy?
Larry, what's up, man? Thank you for having me on.
How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. All is good. It's we were talking earlier. It's fantastic to reconnect with you. It's been a few years, but I'm glad to touch base, and I'm glad to see that you're still rocking.
That's awesome, man. Good to see you too. Hey, is that Monopoly money or something you got on the background there?
Yeah. So let me actually. These are a couple different pieces. I'm a big fan of Monopoly, so I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah. Keep pushing.
Yeah. So I got 3 Monopoly pieces back there.
I love it.
Yep.
I love it. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, guys, I've known Alex for, oh man, how long have we known each other?
So I got exposed to you, Larry. I think I bought one of your training programs back in like 2006. I got started in 2005, and then you and I met at a conference in Las Vegas in 2009. So we've known each other for about a good, 7 years or so.
Right. It's been a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has.
That's good, man.
And you're still, man, you're still out there. You're still out there kicking, man, closing deals. I see you're still speaking, and so it's great to just watch your growth all these years.
Yeah, I stay very busy, that's for sure. In fact, as soon as we get done recording this, I'm on my way to the airport.
I believe you. Where are you speaking at?
I'm headed to Pensacola, Florida.
Gotcha.
So closer to you, at least in your state, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. So, Alex, why don't you start out and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. So, born and raised in Miami. My entire family's from Cuba. And, ever since I was a kid, I always had that bug to be an entrepreneur and start something. And I remember when I was 10, 11 years old, I'd be at the baseball park with my parents all day long. I grew up playing baseball. And I'd buy baseball cards, and I would flip them to other kids. At the time, I didn't know. So at the time, I didn't even know what wholesaling was. I didn't know about flipping, but I got exposed to buying low and selling high when I was a kid.
Right.
And then I went to college, and at some point during college, Larry, I felt like I wanted to be a CFO or a CEO of like a Fortune 500 company. And I kind of say that, and I throw up my mouth a little bit, because right out of college, I took a job with General Electric Consumer Finance as part of their financial management program.
Right.
And I'll never forget, Larry, 3 months into that job, working an average of 70 to 80 hours a week. I was cross-eyed from looking at Excel and PowerPoint all day long. I knew that I couldn't design the lifestyle I wanted, working for someone else.
Right.
So I finished that 2-year program, and I went backpacking around Europe for 3 months. When I got back from that, a buddy of mine, I was in Ibiza. We were partying in Ibiza, and I went to an internet cafe. A friend of mine sent me an email. He says, "Hey, do you want to go to this Marketing for Deals boot camp in Atlanta?" And I said, "Sure." And he goes, "It's $997. And for me, this was 2005. That seemed like all the money in the world. Like I didn't have that.
Right.
But that was kind of my fork in the road moment. So I put it on my credit card. A month later, went to that boot camp. I took out one of the pre-foreclosure letters in that manual, and about 60 to 90 days later, did my first deal, made 44 grand on that one.
Wow. The turning point.
Yep.
So
that was my turning point. That was October 2005.
So what does your business look like today?
Yeah. So wholesaling is our primary niche. I've done all types of deals since 2005, but our bread and butter has always been wholesaling. So right now I got a pretty small team. I have an acquisitions manager, a dispositions manager, transaction coordinator, a virtual assistant in the Philippines, and then a dedicated outbound cold caller who lives in Costa Rica. And then obviously myself. So we're big followers of traction, and we've gone through the EOS process. So right now I'm wearing the visionary and the integrator hat. So in the next probably 6 to 12 months, I'm going to be looking for an integrator. And then I have, those specific people that are, basically accountable for those seats: acquisitions, dispositions, and transaction coordination.
Right. Good. So tell us a little bit about how your business runs. I know, you're in a very, very competitive market, right?
Yeah. So South Florida is pretty competitive. There's a lot of, especially with all the weekend seminars that seem to be popping up. There's so many people getting into the business. It's not uncommon for our acquisition manager to go meet with a motivated seller, and that person has 15 to 30 postcards and letters on the kitchen counter. So yeah, we're wholesaling about an average of 4 deals a month, more or less. And we operate here in Miami and Broward County. And from a marketing perspective, Larry, our bread and butter has always been direct mail. And as of the last 9 to 12 months, we've been doing a lot of outbound dialing. And we've significantly seen our average profit per transaction go up through that particular marketing channel.
Right.
Outbound dialing has been pretty hot. It's been a pretty hard channel for us. And the key is with anything is, Larry, you got to be consistent.
That's
you got to
true.
do it on a daily basis. You got to be focused and consistent. It doesn't sound sexy, but I think that's the key to success.
That is so true. So tell us a little bit about you were doing direct mail, and now you're primarily doing dialing, or are you still doing a lot of direct mail?
Yeah, we're still. Matter of fact, we've really cranked it up from a direct mail standpoint. So last year, on average, we were sending anywhere between 7,000 and 10,000 pieces a month. This year, 2018, we're doing about 30,000 pieces a month. So we're still doing a lot of direct mail. Matter of fact, we're doing more than we've ever done. But we've also ramped up our outbound dialing. So I have my dedicated cold caller in Costa Rica. She puts in about 4 to 5 hours a day. And then I have my acquisition manager that puts in an additional 2 to 3 hours a day of outbound dialing.
So is your virtual assistant that's doing the dialing, she's on a dialer, right? And are they calling the same list that you direct mailed, so it's a second touch, or is it a totally different list?
Yeah, it's the same exact. So every single list, we hit 5 to 7 different lists, from probates to inherited, obviously the absentees with equity, out-of-state owners. We're sending the mail, and then we're skip tracing those people and then outbound dialing them.
Is there a good service that you use to skip trace those?
Yeah, so we use TLO. So TLO is one service. I know there's a lot of people use LexisNexis. Yeah. And then there's several services out there, but TLO and LexisNexis have been the two that have been the best for us anyway.
That's good. That is good.
Yeah.
So 30,000 pieces a month, that's a lot.
It is. We've never done that kind of volume. But yeah, this year, to hit our goal, we really wanted to ramp it up. And, direct mail is still, even though it's pretty competitive, Larry, it still gets us a pretty high ROI. So for every $3,500 we spend on direct mail, we're typically getting a deal where our average profit's around 20 grand. So it's still a positive ROI.
So 3,500 gets you 20 grand. That's huge.
Correct. On average, it's a little more. It's about 35 and change. But yeah, just under $3,600 on average in 2017 that we spent on direct mail. We were landing a deal that made us around 20 grand.
Wow. That's really good.
Yep.
That is good.
Now, the thing with direct mail, Larry, is that you have to have the team and the infrastructure and the system to process all the leads and to accurately follow up. People, I think one of the biggest mistakes, Larry, that people make with direct mail is they'll send out a campaign and they won't send out another follow-up. Or the leads will come in, they won't call back the hang-ups.
Right.
So there's so many mistakes that people make when it comes to direct mail that you really got to have your follow-up system dialed in. And like anything, you just got to be consistent. You got to pick up those calls live. I see a lot of people that are sending the direct mail leads to a 24-hour recorded voicemail. I think that used to work, but now, and especially if you're in a competitive market, you're losing out on a lot of deals by not taking those calls live.
Right. I think you're right about that. How is having an assistant that is not in your office? You said she's in Costa Rica, I believe.
Well, so my virtual assistant's in the Philippines, and then my outbound cold caller is in Costa Rica. Yeah, so we're all virtual. My acquisitions manager, dispositions manager, and transaction coordinator, they're here in South Florida. They're in Miami, but we don't actually have like a brick and mortar office that we all report to. We all work out of our houses. I'm in here in my office, but it's just me here.
So you have one salesperson or disposition manager, one acquisition manager, and then you have a closing person that manages your closings.
Bingo. Exactly.
That's awesome. That is awesome. How many leads do you think your acquisition manager has to run to get a deal? How many appointments?
So we're doing about on average. So if we're talking gross leads, and what I mean by gross leads is the phone, the phone rings, it's about 80 to 83. If we're talking actual real leads where the person has a property to sell, it's about 45 leads for us to get a deal.
So is that 45 in-home appointments to get a deal?
No, those are 45. The phone has rang and, hey, I have a house I'm looking to sell. It typically takes us about 6 or 7 appointments to actually get a deal, like a signed AB contract.
Wow. 6 to 7 appointments to a deal? That's a really high closing ratio.
Right. You think, man? I guess that's relative, Larry. I'm always pushing on my team. Like, they've for the last year and a half, I put them through sales training, and so that number has gotten better. And I continue to push. We're pretty aggressive with setting appointments. In other words, if the after repair value of a house is $200,000 and the seller's looking for $190, but if we hear pain and motivation, we're still scheduling that appointment. Because we believe that if we can get face to face with that seller, we can bridge the gap between where they're at and where they want to go. And we can, taking them through a particular sales process, we can touch on that pain, and we feel like we're in a better position to convert that appointment to a contract. I think a lot of people, they might hear, oh, the house is worth 200 and you want 190, and they'll just move on. And I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Now, what's the average price range of most of your deals, if you have one?
About 100 to 200. 100 to 200. So we're in that after repair range of 100 to 200. Yeah, every now and then we'll do stuff like between the 200 and 300, but it's few and far between.
Right.
That's kind of our bread and butter.
And your average profit is around 20 grand. Who is your typical buyer? Is it a fix and flip investor, or is it somebody looking to buy a house to live in it, just wants a good deal, or what?
No. So about 70% of our buyers are fix and flip. The other 25% are buy and hold. And then every now and then we have somebody that has what we call mattress money, that, they're looking to fix it up and live in the house themselves. But, the majority of our buyers are people that want to fix and flip.
Wow, that's good. That is good, man.
Yep.
Now, some of our listeners may not get what you're talking about when you say they're on a dialer. You've got your person in Costa Rica that's on a dialer. You got your acquisition person on a dialer. Let's talk about the dialer for a little bit, because that's something that's really hot right now and a lot of people are using. We just started using it a while back. We're using Call Tools. I know there's a couple other ones out there. So tell our listeners a little bit about that.
So the dialer has been a complete game changer for us, Larry, as far as outbound calling. Matter of fact, when we first started outbound dialing about 9 months ago, we jumped right into a dialer. So we started using a service called Mojo Sells. Right. If you guys go to Mojo Sells, basically what it is, it's a 3-line dialer. So our virtual assistant loads up our list, and then we select the 3-line dialer. You can pre-record a voicemail so that, if you connect with someone and it's a voice recording, you can click a button and it drops a pre-recorded message.
Right.
And it's a 3-line dialer. So basically you load it up and you hit the dialer, and you're waiting for somebody to connect. You're going to see 3 boxes and it'll highlight it in green. And then you just start talking to the person. If somebody else happens to pick up while you're on a call, there's another pre-recorded message that says something like, hello, sorry, I can't hear you. Let me call you right back. And then the system will know to dial that person as soon as you hang up.
Right.
So before Mojo, Larry, we used to, our acquisition manager would make maybe 8 to 12 calls an hour. Now they're making between 50 and 70.
That's huge.
And then we went to a mastermind that you're a part of back in December, and we heard about another service called Call Tools, which is the one that you're using.
Right.
This is a 10-line dialer. So it's calling 10 people at the same time, and it's got so many more advanced features than Mojo. But the one thing I will say, guys, is, I'm not an attorney, obviously. Make sure that you're following the compliance laws as it relates to using dialers and just connecting with people, because you don't want to get yourself into hot water with that. But
absolutely.
And I think there's a lot of gray area when it comes to that. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there.
And that is true. Whoever you use your dialer from, whoever you get whoever's dialer you use, as well as wherever you get your list, Just make sure you're very careful about that, and you know the rules and regs, because you don't want to be spamming
Absolutely.
somebody over the phone. You know, it's very, very important. But
Yeah.
but we've just
That's right.
started using it. It takes a little bit to get used to, as I'm sure
It does.
you know. Now,
So here's a crazy thing, Larry. When we juxtapose our average profit per transaction when it comes to direct mail, which is roughly around 20 grand, to the deals that we've closed from outbound calling, it's more than double. Our average profit is just under 50 grand when it comes to outbound dialing. And I'm not talking rehabs. I'm talking about straight wholesale deals. And I'm I'll be honest, I'm hesitant to even throw that out there because it almost seems unrealistic or unbelievable. But of the deals we've closed from outbound calling, we're making on average just under 50 grand on these deals.
Now, you know, the reason I looked surprised was not because you just told me 50 grand. The reason I looked surprised is because not so long ago, you told that to me and you said, don't tell anybody. I can't believe you're sharing it.
Yeah. No, it's all good, man. There's more than enough opportunity out there, you know? So I think here's kind of how I compare cold calling. Cold calling to me is like direct mail used to be for real estate investors back in like 2005, 6, 7, where there was people sending mail, but it's not like today.
Right.
And I think in probably a year or two, there's going to be so many people calling that maybe it starts to get watered down, that tool or that strategy.
Right.
But if you're not cold calling right now, I think you're losing out on some opportunity out there.
So, I totally agree. I totally agree. Even though, you know, most everybody knows I'm the HUD guy. I buy a lot of HUD houses, do a lot of stuff on the MLS. Yep. But, you know, you're missing out on deals if you're not marketing your business, right? You're missing out.
That's right.
So,
and I think it's the difference between being reactive and proactive. You know, you send out direct mail and you're waiting for calls to come in. The way that I look at, cold calling versus a lot of other marketing channels, it's the difference between being reactive and proactive. You know, with direct mail, you send out direct mail and you're waiting for those calls to come in. You're waiting for the phone to ring. With outbound dialing, it's kind of like door knocking. You're getting in front of people, but yet you could do it at much larger scale with a lot of these tools like call tools, Mojo Cells, etc.
That's great. That's great. A couple questions I want to ask you. How many hours a day do you put your people on the dialer? Because you can't have them on it 8 hours a day. That won't work.
Yeah, no, so on average, they're about 6 to 7 hours a day, but it's two different people that are on the dialer. So I have my dedicated cold caller. She puts in about 4.5, sometimes 5 hours a day. And then I'll have my acquisitions guy that puts in a couple of hours a day.
So you can literally have somebody on a dialer 4 to 5 hours a day.
Yeah, I don't recommend any more than that, Larry, because I think you're going to tend to burn people out in the long run if you put them past 5 hours.
Right.
I think 3 hours is like probably the right sweet spot.
Right.
Anything more than that, and the other thing, Larry, is you got to make sure that you put the type of person that wants to be on the phone, not somebody who rather be outside the office meeting people. Because if you put the wrong personality type in that particular seat, you're definitely going to burn them out.
One question comes to mind is, what do you get a better response on, your person in your virtual assistant or your acquisition manager using the dialer? Which one gets a better response rate, better lead, dollar per lead cost? Here's how I'll answer that question. I think I'm in a unique position that my virtual assistant doesn't really sound like a virtual assistant. Her English is perfect and her Spanish is perfect. So you would never know that she's calling from another country. But generally speaking, I think local people are better. And here's what I found. I think, hopefully this doesn't come across the wrong way. My experience, when I have a woman on the dialer, the people that she connects with, the homeowners, tend to be a little bit more, their guard goes down. They're more open and receptive to the conversation versus the male being on the dialer. Right. So, I agree with that. Yep. Do you mind sharing how you compensate the different people that work with you? Yeah. Yeah, so my outbound dialer right now is getting paid $15 an hour. She doesn't get any part of the deal or anything like that. So she just gets she's an hourly person. She gets $15 an hour. We're about to give her a raise because she's just done well, and she's been with us for almost 9 months now. Right. So I would recommend anything between $15 and $20 an hour for the right person.
is about the right compensation for an outbound dialer.
Okay, good. What about your acquisition?
And then my
people?
acquisitions person I was just going to get to, so they get 15% of the gross on every deal.
Uh-huh.
So if we make 10 grand on a deal, they're getting $1,500.
Awesome. Well, given the fact that you're making 20 to 50, that's awesome. They're making a good living.
Yeah, they're making a pretty good living, and that's the only thing they're responsible for is just processing leads and going on appointments. That's it. That's the only hat they wear.
Bring in
it's an important one,
right?
But I don't have. That's right.
That's good.
Right.
That's good.
Yep.
So, what about on the sales side? How do you handle that?
Same thing. So as soon as our acquisition manager gets an AB contract, they go into Podio, they click a button, it changes the status, and all of a sudden now the ball is in my disposition manager's court. And they're responsible for building relationships with buyers. They're responsible for marketing our contracts, showing properties if need be. They're essentially responsible for now selling that contract to one of our fix and flip buyers or buy and hold buyers. And as far as compensation, Larry, the same exact thing, 15% of the gross. So, my margins are typically around 50%.
Right.
The company margins. So my acquisitions person's getting 15%, disposition person's getting 15%, and then there's about 20% in just expenses and things of that nature.
Right. That's good. That's a good model right there.
Yep.
I like that model.
It's simple, wholesaling with. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, what about your list? Where are you getting your list from? Share that with our listeners if you don't mind.
So we've gotten our list from listsource.com. We've gotten lists from listability.com. Rebo Gateway is another list provider. Lance and Terry over at US Lead List. We've gotten our inheritance list from them. But honestly, Larry, my best list is when we send someone to the county locally and they start to build the list in-house. Last year, 2017, of all the lists that we hit, the tax delinquent was by far and away our best list. And that was the list that we didn't buy from a provider, but we got from our county. Yep.
Wow. Tax delinquent list is your best list.
That's so we focus on people that are at least 2 years behind on their taxes and don't have a tax deed sale coming up. That was our best list last year anyway.
That's good. That's good. Now, do you have certain criteria, like if you go out to ListSource or Listability or one of those, do you have certain, like how many years they've owned the house, the value of the home, the amount of equity? How do you determine all that?
So on average, Larry, here's our breakdown as far as criteria. We went back and we looked at the inventory, all the deals we closed in the last 36 months. And 90% of the deals we closed, the sellers were between 55 and 70 years of age. Wow, so when we go to ListSource, we're always looking for homeowners that are over 50. It's basically between 50 and 80.
Right.
All right. So we're targeting those people. We look for length of ownership, at least 10 years that they've owned the property. Okay. We look for at least 40% equity. So in ListSource, you can select like between 40 and 100%, which obviously 100% means that they own it free and clear. And then we're looking for bread and butter, so we look for 3-2s between 1,000 square feet and 2,000 square feet. But every now and then, Larry, we'll target houses that don't make sense. Like, for example, here in South Florida, there's no such thing as a one-bedroom house. But we can go out there and we can pull a list of one-bedroom houses because it was incorrectly put in the tax assessor's office.
Right.
And so sometimes we like to zig when other people are zagging, and we'll look for those anomalies.
That's good. I love that.
Yeah.
We do the same thing with HUD houses. Look for anomalies.
That's right.
That is awesome.
So
that's
especially
really good
when
stuff.
you see like one-bedroom houses that are every once in a while we'll see one-bedroom houses that are like 1,100 square feet. We know that that's not a one-bedroom house. It's probably a 2 or a 3-bedroom house.
Right.
But people are not selecting that in their criteria. Therefore, it's not getting onto their list.
Right. That's awesome.
So we will.
Alex, you just shared a tremendous amount of information, man. I really, really appreciate this. Do you have anything that we can do for you, our listeners can do for you, or, if you want to share your contact information or have something you want to give away to them? I appreciate that. So I host a podcast called The Flip Empire Show.
We're close to 200 episodes in. I launched it about a year and a half ago. So if you guys go to flipempire.com, there's actually a course there that you can get for free on flipempire.com. And then I would encourage you to check out the show as well. You know, we cover all types of content. You know, Larry, I've had you on the show, and so you know, I look for the cream of the crop as far as people I can interview, and I release 2 shows a week where I'll do an expert interview, and then I'll also do a shorter version where I'm answering a question, and it's typically a 5 to 15 minute show. So yeah, Larry, I would love it for people to go to flipempire.com.
Sounds good. Sounds good, man. Listen, I really, really appreciate it. You got a machine going on there. You get to work out of your house, be at home with your family, and you got everybody is virtual. Man, I love it. I love it. So what kind of parting words do you have for our listeners?
You know, I want to go back to one of the things I said at the beginning, focus and consistency. I think everybody, not everybody, but there's a lot of people out there looking for the shiny object. They're bouncing around from book to book, seminar to seminar. You know, pick one niche, pick one strategy, and go an inch wide and a mile deep. Like focus and consistency. And I think that's what's going to get you to the next step, not the latest and greatest, insert the blank. You know what I mean?
That's exactly right. I love it, man. I love it. Alex, thank you so much for being on. I really do appreciate you taking the time out today. And if there's anything we can ever do for you, please let us know. And guys, check out his podcast. It's good stuff. I know. I've been on it.
So I love it. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Take care, guys.